So I thought I'd talk about a topic that I thought was very interesting, and that is beltless training. To train with or without a belt, sort of kind of interesting, something that I've been experiencing recently in my training because I haven't been using a belt too much in the last probably 8 weeks. And since I've been on Candido training a linear progression, I've done a lot of it beltless. And the one thing I've been noticing is that it's almost like they're completely different lifts. I wrote a blog post on my blog, deadliftnerd.com, where there's a video of Dan Green talking about beltless training. He has a little short snippet at the end of his video. It was on, I think, Animal's YouTube channel. And he was talking about how basically with a belt, without a belt, with knee wraps, it's essentially, they're basically apples to oranges is what his quote is, what he says. And I'm beginning to realize that is what it is. It's just the lifts just feel completely different, and especially if you're changing weight classes, your leverages change a little bit, and it almost feels like you have to rebuild your technique to a certain degree. That's not for everybody. What I've noticed too is that, just kind of taking this analogy a little further, or this idea further, is that my pause bench, when I do a lot of pause benching, my touch and go bench is not very good, or it suffers. Like I can't get as many reps in. And then when I do a lot of touch and go benching, my pause benching suffers. So it's almost that whole idea of it being specificity in training. Because you would think that if you can pause bench 275, that I would be able to do maybe 3 or 4 reps touch and go bench, and that's not the case, at least not yet anyway. So anyways, what I've been noticing with the belt, and one of the biggest contributors to it, especially when I was about 5 or 6 pounds heavier, is that my stomach was a little bit bigger, and I also had some pressure to create, so you can get more tight in the stomach, right? But more importantly, that wasn't so much the part that helped me the most, in my opinion, what I've noticed. The thing that's helped me the most was when I get to the bottom of a squat, because I do squat fairly, well, before I was squatting well below parallel, and when I was able to get my thighs against the belt, and I was able to create a lot more pressure and basically squeeze myself out of the bottom very, very quickly. So I would explode from the bottom by using my thighs against my stomach, or the belt and the stomach, and it would basically like I get slingshot out of the bottom. And and when you don't have that belt, you can't do that. So it's almost like your technique changes completely. You have to rely solely on your hips almost. And I'm kind of realizing that this is it's forcing me basically to stay a lot more tighter in the abdomen. So what I get to do when I do beltless training, or what I've noticed, is that my core is significantly stronger, and I have a lot better form and a lot better technique. Because what ends up happening also is that when you wear a belt and you squat heavy weight, is that the belt gives you a little bit more forgiveness. If you take this analogy, if you've ever played golf before, there's like the golf clubs with a higher loft have more forgiveness, and that means that if you don't hit it directly in the center of the club head, you can still basically hit the ball pretty decent, especially for like a sandwich. Now if you talk about a driver where the loft is like 9 degrees or less, or 10 degrees, what happens is that if you're off the center by just a little bit, that ball is going to go sideways. It's going to go either like a hook, or it's going to go a slice. And that's kind of the idea. When you don't have the belt, you don't have that extra forgiveness, and that forgiveness allows for more error room and just basically a little bit more safety, making the lift a little bit easier. Because if you start to get pitched forward on the squat, or basically too far forward, what ends up happening is you have to use a little bit more, you have more torque on your spine, and if you don't have that belt to support you, you don't have that extra, or what I've noticed for me is that I don't have that space where my thigh presses against the belt, and I lose some of my position. And basically makes it so that I have to solely rely on my lower back muscles to good morning the thing out if I lose position out of a heavy squat. Now, from the deadlift perspective, I've noticed that the belt, I don't think the belt does a whole lot for improving, I don't know, as far as maximum lift, because I think it does add a little bit to my lift. I mean, I guess it does. I really almost feel like it's mostly psychological. I think the belt adds more to my squat. The belt adds more weight to my squat as far as a 1 rep max is concerned, whereas for a deadlift, it just really adds just a little bit, not a whole lot. And what I notice it does, it just basically gives me more endurance. So it allows me to keep my core tighter for a longer period of time, because on the Candido training program, on the heavy days, I'm doing 3 sets of 6. Most recently, on my last video, if you saw, I did a set of 6, or 2 sets of 6, I'm sorry, not 3 sets of 6. I did a set of 6 with 445 with a belt for the first time, and that's with a belt. And I did for 6, and the weight was pretty light. After I got to like 4 reps, I started to get tired, but I mean, I finished that set pretty easily. And so that's why I went up 10 pounds and did 455. I end up getting about 4 or 5 reps, and then I have to stop intermittently, and I end up doing 8 repetitions. So what I've noticed with the belt for deadlifting is that it basically gives you more endurance in the lower back, which is pretty obvious. But my point of making this video, and just kind of what I wanted to share my thoughts, was that when I put the belt on for some heavy work, for repetition work, I can basically hammer through reps much easier. So I'm basically stronger. And sometimes in my head I'm thinking, well, I'm not that strong, or I'm not where I was before my meet in February. And I just realized that most of my training was without a belt. And for the first time, I actually used the belt to actually do some rep work. And I'm just like, holy shit, I'm way stronger. And even though I'm about 5 pounds lighter. So it's kind of using these ideas. And again, as I said, I can't remember if I said this in this video because I've tried to make this video a few different times already, is Dan Green was talking about, there's this video in the description I'll put about how Dan Green was talking about beltless squatting, and there's it's like apples to oranges, you know, your technique has to change. You know, he doesn't say your technique has to change, but he does say that they're apples to oranges, with a belt, without a belt, with knee wraps, without knee wraps. They're basically different lifts. And you're getting different training stimulus, and he talked about how, you know, it's kind of nice to basically do like a 5 rep max or 10 rep max without a belt, without having so much weight on the bar. And I don't know exactly where he was going with that, because it's a very short segment in the video where he talks about that. But I like getting his ideas, because obviously he's one of the strongest men out there, one of the world class, one of the best. And also, you know, after going to the seminar, you know, in January, it was just kind of cool because he's a very intelligent guy. He really does know what he's talking about. He's got some good insight. So anyways, that's my video. That's my thoughts on beltless training and my experience so far. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'd actually like to get to hear what you think about beltless training and how you use it in your training, because for me, I noticed that there's a big benefit to it, but I've only been powerlifting for a very short period of time. I'm wondering if anyone out there that's been training for a lot longer, kind of how you use beltless training, or if you even use beltless training. Anyways, thanks for watching. Click like if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're not a subscriber.